Conscious parenting. There's much to this practice. It's relatively new practice, and it is a practice that has been really made noticed by one psychologist. Her name is Salisbury. So it's a combination of well, I was about to go into the explanation of conscious parenting, and I will do that in a moment. But what you need to know now is that there are two concepts and ideas up there that is important to recognize. The first of which is contemplative. This style of parenting requires a whole lot of thinking. And that lot of thinking has to do with thinking about oneself. You as a parent in relation to your child. The child is secondary. That is not to mean that we are diminishing the child, but in order to be more effective as a parent, we have to really take a good gander at ourselves first and foremost. The second concept up there, crucial and important, is self-discovery. Because for conscious parents, when they go through the process of self-reflection, they will find a lot about themselves. They will find a lot in terms of understanding more about themselves. But I started out by saying that conscious parenting tends to facilitate thinking. That is one part of it, but I'm hoping that Vivianne and I could appeal to your heart as well. And I say that only because a lot of parenting starts with thinking, and we cannot simply rely on that. Because we can think all we want. In other words, what we believe to be good parenting could turn out harmful. Now, granted, not most of parents, I would imagine, when they are parenting, their intention is not to hurt their child, but we do. One of the examples would be the inclination to punish children. And I will go more in detail about why conscious parents don't punish children. And it has very much to do with trying to get the child to be conscious. And in order to get the child to that space or in that mindset, we collaborate and we communicate. And that is more effective. Now, that is not to say punishment is not effective. It is highly effective. It works when you ground the child, when you take things away, or when you even spank the child. It certainly does suppress behaviors. But to appeal to your heart requires that you understand that the child is a human being, not just a human doing. So when we emphasize human doing, that the child's acting a particular way that we disapprove of, we reduce the child to just simply behavior. And that's why many parents use punishment in an attempt to try to shift or change or modify the behavior. That is not sufficient.
Thinking of, if we want to grow a child, if you want them to develop, to flourish, to flower, right? The acorn to become the tree, we cannot go into the negative. We cannot just reduce. So I will stop you from doing this behavior, but that is not growing the child. It's just preventing them from doing something. It doesn't invest in a way that helps them have fertile ground to grow, So it's important that the mindset is to grow, to nourish, to build versus to reduce.
Yes, I remind parents often that the child is four-dimensional. Behavior certainly is one, but the child is of mind and spirit and heart. And conscious parents emphasize all four dimensions. So we take all that into consideration. It is not as if we are ignoring the behavior, it's how we approach the opposing or how we approach the behavior that we are dissatisfied with that is key to conscious parenting. Okay? And we do that a lot. It starts off with we wonder, we wonder, we wonder. And that's the process of self reflection, wondering. And a lot of that wondering in terms of parenting is wondering what we could do better or more efficient and what we could do to better understand, meaning better understand the child. Now, that is only as good, that is understanding the child, as we are able to understand ourselves. So there is a connection there. There's a correlation one and the other. So here, I will talk about how to deal with fights and explain why children are being disrespectful and or they may appear to be so. Our interpretation is sometimes skewed. I've never met a child who is disrespectful. Working 20 years, 18, 20 years with families and children, I've never had a child come into my office, and I've seen probably tens of thousands who came off as disrespectful. They may be dysregulated or disconnected, dissociated. They may not understand the rules of life or engagement, and because they didn't have the best model. And it starts with that. And this is what conscious parenting is about when we think about contemplating who we are as parents. What is it that we can do to model integrity, model boundaries, model love, model respect, model confidence, model?
We as parents have to live it instead of preach it, right? We love preaching. We sound so good, don't we? You know, like, I know I love preaching. But it's much harder to embody the values and the things that we want for a child and apply it to ourselves, right?
And if we can't get it right, and I'm very forgiving of parents. I know parents don't always get it right, and probably most of the time do not get it right unless they're a psychologist and an expert at working with children, because not all psychologists are that effective either, unless you work with children.
We often don't make good parents.
Yes. In any case, let's move on. This is what my wife and I, this is how we perceive our child and the child. They are often referred to as the eighth wonder of the world, and it is befitting. If you can sit back and look at a child through the lens of love and compassion, you will recognize that there is something remarkable about the child who is gifted in the way of wonder. I put there, by the way, a lot of these phrases or sentences or expressions are actually in the book that we are writing. And so I took them from the book. In any case, how should we go out of our way to preserve the wonder of wonders that the universe has gifted to all of us? That question will be answered through time, okay, through our talks here and there. It has allowed us to see the eighth wonder of the world, that is the child. Now, it is just an expression. It's not really associated with the child so much, but it has been. But as I said, when you can sit back and just experience the child in his or her space, there's something uniquely incredible about the child in every aspect that would mean every aspect of their humanness. It allowed us to see the child as the root of all things for us joy and lovely. Now, I put the word lovely up there because I have heard parents and my parents in general, and my wife included, often referring to our child as lovely, regardless of what the child does, whether the child does something we perceive as wonderful or the child is mischievous. Everything about the child is lovely. And even those things perceived as mischievous is itself lovely, because what it does is it reflects one thing, and one thing that is the child is a human being. And when the child's mischievous, they remind us that we are human beings. And that's the interpretation that is derived from conscious parents. It's not that we are naive and we don't see behaviors and actions as inappropriate or crossing the boundaries or quote unquote bad, but it's what we do with those instances and how we interpret them allows us to maintain and sustain a semblance of humility.
Yeah, and I often hear through my friends or even have experienced myself. So let's say if the child is small and wants to wash the dishes, right? Like they wash the dishes, there's food still stuck in it, there's still soap, there's no, it's, we forgot what it was like to be in the beginning. We forgot what it was like for us. And we're so focused on, oh my gosh, they're going to be stuck doing dishes poorly for the rest of their life. And what kind of mother am I if I let them go into the world doing dishes? That's our mind, right? And we miss the wonder and the beauty of the beginning. And so we're so focused on outcome that we sacrifice the child for perfectionism when they're not capable of being. We are not. We cannot be perfect. Why do we expect a child? So really shifting to what is this learning experience and this wonderment? How is the child being lovely when there's soaps and once they go to bed, you can rinse them out and they'll be just fine. But they build confidence and accomplishment and they feel valued and seen. But when you when you try to change that and try to make the child, they will shrink into shame, right? And then they don't want to try anymore. That's no wonder they don't want to wash the dishes now. So to really invest on the beauty of the child as they are versus what we think they should be, and with our fears planted on them.
I mean, everything that a child does, even our child, but everything the child in my office, whatever they say and do, brings about a sense of joy. We all refer to it. It's actually one of the 10 qualities of a conscious parent, this ability or capacity to experience what's called sympathetic joy. So the ability to bear witness to the child's experience, and from that experience we find joy, whether it's climbing a tree 50, 70 feet high as an accomplishment or lying. So I pleasure in the idea that children lie. I love it. I want them to lie. It's important that they lie because when they are lying, they're communicating to us. And what more can we ask? Now, if the child is completely shut down and not even speaking to us, then we are in trouble because the child has reached indifference. So any form of communication whatsoever, even the ones that are perceived or deemed as unacceptable, is communication. It's weird to ask that parents find sympathetic joy or joy in general in these instances, because when we think about a child who is lying, we automatically go to bad. That's a bad child. And we have to be very cautious, because then we cross the line over to judgment. Okay, so that's not thinking. Referring to your child as bad is a judgment, it's not a thought. So there's nothing productive about that. There's nothing helpful about that. Now, that's not to say that we would want them to lie, but there are ways to help them be truthful. My question often is always, how did they get there in the first place?
And the question that showed up in my head is, Why do they have the need to lie? What is it that I have done that made the environment unsafe or I've been critical to the point that they don't feel safe telling me what is really going on, right? Like, so it reflects on me versus the idea they are trying to get away with something and they are, like a thief, right? Like they're just being criminal by lying, and I gotta correct that behavior. We're missing the communication. Is mom, I don't feel safe with you, so I couldn't tell you what happened. That's really what they're saying when they're lying. Mom, dad, right? Like, or if they're really young, it's fantasy. They don't live in the same reality that we do. They're much more expensive in their play and ideas. So, and adults mistake that as lying as well, right? So,
you mentioned something as adults we aren't able to see things for the first time again. It's very difficult. We once we reach adulthood, we have very few firsts left in our lifetime. And I was thinking kind of on the term of sympathetic joy, and just like letting them experience that is almost a gateway for us to have that first again. If we just sit there and let them have that moment, we almost get to experience that first again through them,
yeah.
which is pretty special.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because then we have the opportunity to expand, to grow, to open up, right? Because sometimes we get stagnated because of life being so hard sometimes. And through the child, if we really pause and pay attention and we enjoy that experience, we grow. Right? We learn something. We become more human.
So, setting aside conscious parenting for a moment, and I'll let you in a secret. When a child comes into my office, I'm going to assess three things. There it is. That's the secret right there. Their ability to self-regulate, because that's going to tell me a lot about their history, not about them. So, of course, part of that has to do with them, because they're the one that is dysregulated. But, boy, their inability to self-regulate do tell a tale about the way they have been brought up. Okay, so I won't go any further than that. Okay, ability to establish healthy relationships. I'm watching very carefully kids, whether it's in the Grove or in my office or my own child, and to watch how that child relate to other people, their peers and adults, because then I get a glimpse, into whether they are capable of establishing a relationship. That gives me a sense of where they're at. If they struggle, then that gives me a sense of their psychological mindedness or lack of mindedness in relation to others. Okay, and finally, using relationship as a means to learn. There are some individuals who are really good at using the relationship so that they can understand themselves better. So this form of processing is referred to as relational intelligence. It is your ability to look at another human being, watch how they interact and react to you, and you get a glimpse into what you are. Because how they are acting and reacting, and the way they act or react, is dependent on what you're doing in the moment. So I want to be able to detect whether kids and or adults are capable of watching other people and seeing themselves in relation to that other person. Okay? All right. The leading cause of mental illness in children. Let's start with heredity. You have a problem, they have a problem. Okay, so unfortunately, they are already right off the bat at a disadvantage. Now, heredity doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? It can also be a good thing as well. But I like to talk about the bad thing because that's where all the goodies are. So heredity, and when I said they're already at a disadvantage, consider that for a moment. They carry certain traits, like the anger traits. The anger trait is one of those traits that is almost guaranteed passed from a parent to a child. It is actually considered one of the only traits of over 700 known human traits to be passed down. Now,
even though they've never been in that environment or haven't had a relationship with that person.
Yes. Just we're talking biology here.
Mm-hmm.
And trauma is passed on even if they didn't have the same trauma.
So consider what we're thinking about. And then on top of that, you compound the issue, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. Are you compounding the issue by providing an unhealthy environment? Now, you add those combinations, right? Like psychological trauma. Now, I'm not just talking about mere abuse, like spanking or sexual abuse or psychological, like emotional abuse or mental abuse. Did you know that some children, just by the way you gaze at them, can potentially cause trauma? Just by the way that you're gazing at the child. The moment you give them the stink eye, I call it, the attitude, the eye of attitude, immediately the amygdala activates. Immediately. You know, the fight or flight part of the brain, or freeze, activates. And it will hijack their prefrontal cortex, delaying their ability to think clearly. So if a child has a parent who is dysregulated, think about what that means for the child, rather, that the child is likely constantly on fight, flight, or freeze, preventing the child during the most critical periods and sensitive periods of the child's life to develop a sophisticated, or at least more sophisticated prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is associated with regulation, emotional regulation, impulse control, behavior regulation.
Building that filter to say things that are hurtful, it's in here.
They are at a disadvantage already. My goodness. So, and every parent, right, have given the child at some point, or most of us, the stink eye, right, or the eye of attitude. I refer to it as. Okay, so we cannot avoid it. So I have to make this clear too for you all and the viewers out there. Not every stink eye would lead to emotional trauma, but too much of it can. So, or we can't decide that. It depends so much on the child, how sensitive the child is.
Yeah, but if we do the stink eye once, we're gonna do it again and again and again and again, and most of the time we don't even realize we're not even trying to give them the stink eye. So yes, if you do it once, it's not gonna be one time. There's a lot in you that requires you to do the stink eye, right?
If it's a reflection of anything, right, absolutely, it's a reflection of something going on within us, right? And we're just projecting that in the form of the stink eye, or the eye of attitude. All right. So 90% of the brain growth happens before kindergarten. 90%. Kids age 6 and younger, 90% of the brain growth start there. And then the other 10%, the rest of their lifetime. So here's the thing though. Do you know at what age a child's brain matures? I'm going to tell you. Yes, very good. So in any case, it depends. A child brain matures at 18 if you're a female. 25 to 30, or 28 if you're a male. So a male child doesn't grow up until the 28. Of 25 to 30,
That
actually.
explains all those videos. Have you watched those funny videos and things that the guys do? I'm like, 90% of them are guys. And they'll be younger than 25.
Yeah. So a child doesn't grow if they're a male until about they're 28. So what does that even mean? It makes me think during those times when they are actually kids and they do what they do impulsively because they're children, what are we punishing? Probably, I'm not sure what it is. Now, sure, we are punishing the behavior, but that's associated with it's correlated with the underdeveloped brain, right? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't punish. I'm just saying that don't punish. Okay, 1 million new neural connections per second. A child about the age of 3 and below per second, with every experience they encounter, they're immediately creating these neural connections that then become solidified when it is repeated, or when they observe the same reaction over and over, or when they practice the same behavior over and over. Okay, so that is drastically amazing. That is amazing. I don't know why I said drastically, but that is just absolutely stunning to me. Positive interactions with caregivers help build and consolidate these pathways. It is, in fact, our responsibility. It is our responsibility in the sense that it is through our interactions that can determine the type of pathway they take. And it is then of utmost importance that when we are engaging with a child, we watch ourselves. Hence, conscious parenting is about self-reflection and self-awareness.
And self-regulation.
Self-regulation, in fact, is at the top of the list, but we're going to talk about that in a minute because it's on here too. And these are different names and types of terms that are often associated with, or conscious parenting is also called peaceful parenting, intentional parenting, compassionate parenting. There's soft parenting, kind parenting. So it's one and the same. Anyways, I'll move on because there's a lot to cover. What is conscious parenting? Here it is. It emphasizes the following: peaceful, calm, and gentle approach. It matters not what the circumstances or situation that the child brings forth. We remain peaceful, calm, and gentle. Yes, child gets in a car accident, it is that child's fault because the child was texting whatever while driving. We remain peaceful, calm, and gentle.
I saw a reaction. What happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were in a car accident that he was driving, but it wasn't his fault at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I just to make clear, not peaceful, calm, but it's not peaceful, calm, and gentle during the accident, right? It's our response to the child when we first and when we hear. And my point in all of this is, our action and reactions matter. They matter a lot in terms of how it impacts the child's psychology.
What do you think for you, if you're willing to share, primarily gets in the way of you responding with intention, calm, and to really try to really focus on what's going to be best for the child? What gets in the way for you? We all have different things.
You know, I think sometimes the biggest struggle is these societal pressures or eyes on the outside. You know, how am I going to react, and that kind of, if I'm not being present or conscious in the moment, can influence my actions and reactions, and more times than not, they're not peaceful and kind and So I think that's maybe one thing that really kind of gets in the way is no one's put these pressures on me or these eyes on me, but I've kind of placed them on myself due to kind of societal standards, so to
Right, and
speak.
it's like that is like based on fear. Like I remember, I was on a trip and my husband was doing my kid's hair, and I saw it on the camera. And I'm like, they're gonna call GFS on us, right? Like, what kind of mother am I that my child can go to school with their hair, right? Like, so a fear of what am I gonna look like? What are people gonna think? Or I'm not matching everyone's standards of how I should be, right? Like, it's a lot of pressure. How about for the rest
Well,
of you?
the same thing, the societal, and it's that, well, I wasn't raised that way. And, you know, my mom would never have let me
Yes.
talk back
Yes.
or do this or that, you know, so.
Yeah.
And what will the people think?
Mm-hmm.
Same what you were saying, you know, what's somebody gonna think if she goes to school with her hair that way, or that, because we've even had a neighbor, you know, so what we've heard some of the things he's been saying to you, or you know, and
Because quite vocal.
but yeah, you know, we're not concerned about what the neighbor thinks, it's how we're reacting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any other thoughts or questions?
Jenny was gonna say something.
Oh, yeah.
I was just thinking about moments at home when it's challenging, when other eyes aren't on me. And sometimes it just feels like it takes so much capacity and space inside. Especially, I have one kiddo and her emotions get big, really fast. And if I'm holding too much from the rest of my day, then I don't always have space.
Yes.
Right? And so, yeah. So a lot of times for me, it's just that overflow. Like so then I try more and more to say, hey, I need a minute.
I need to be on
Yeah,
timeout.
just
I'm going on
give me a
timeout.
minute. Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah. And we'll revisit this in 15 or whatever.
Yes.
But yeah.
I have one more that's kind of fun. Think about this. Another one is if I have a timetable. Like I've placed a timetable on how I expect things to get done or when I expect them to be done, and I place that on the child, and it's like their existence of time is completely different than mine.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, we got to leave in 5. Well, if we need to leave in 5, I should have probably planned to leave in 30. And so that's another place is like if I don't plan ahead and think about, okay, how long is this going to take for the child? I've placed those time constraints on myself and ultimately on them, and that's difficult sometimes.
Oh, all that you guys have shared is right on, right? There's so much that we are dealing with, but the concept is important and necessary. But despite life happening and all the pressures and fears, that we can support what is important, you know. But yeah.
So this is a measure of parental intelligence. An aspect of intelligence is referred to as mindfulness intelligence, which combines both emotional intelligence and mindfulness. So just emotional intelligence alone, if a parent were to measure really high on that, the child would gratefully benefit from that. So the combination of the two types of intelligence may include parenting while staying present. And that's how you help the amygdala shut off and help the part of the brain that is the control brain to activate, which is the prefrontal cortex. So once again, staying present. When you can stay present to the child, you are listening very well. And if that is your practice, the child will feel completely validated. Okay, being curious, non-judgmental, maintaining a state of calm, thoughtfulness, patience, self-control, there's self-control, and empathy and compassion. We're going to break that down throughout the talk here and there. So other key principles to take into consideration. So self-reflection and self-awareness. Most, if not most, a lot of the conscious parenting processing, whatever the thing that is going through their head is self-reflection. They're always trying to figure out how they can better themselves for their child. I spend a lot of time in that practice trying to figure out what it is that I can do, or what it is that I can say, what it is that I cannot say or not do to benefit our relationship, my relationship with my child. The two, self-reflection and self-awareness, so they are ultimately the pros of the conscious parenting. They are also referred to as the cons of conscious parenting. Part reason has to do with it takes a lot of darn or damn time to spend, and the effort it would take to become or be self-aware and reflect. I don't have time to reflect. I don't have time to think about this or that about myself in relation to my child. It doesn't benefit me. It doesn't benefit my child, because we can't afford the time. So that being said, make the time, because it is your child. So you gave birth to the child, so you are obligated to make the time. Whatever time that you can offer is valuable time, and whatever time you can offer is quality time, as long as that time is spent listening. So then there's understanding. A lot of the processing that is happening when I am self-reflecting is questioning whether I am understanding this situation clear enough. Now, I may come to an understanding, but I cannot guarantee that what I am understanding makes sense. So I may go back to the child and inquire, hey, I might say, for instance, hey, I'm not quite sure what you meant when you said, I was doing that all throughout the day today when I saw kids in therapy. I'm not quite sure that I understand what you said when you said to me that you can't relate to your dad. It's one of the kids said that. What does that mean? And what do you mean when you say relate? Relate in what way? How can he relate differently? And how would that change the way that you relate to him differently? So, inquiring, helping me to understand. It is the conscious parent superpower. My ability to want to understand requires that I learn to learn.
Because there's assumptions, like we always fill in, we think we know, and we don't. Like there's so much richness for the child, and we miss that opportunity to get to know this beauty inside, because we think we already know, or we think it's not complex, or we think the child cannot have any richness, and they're just a child, right? Like, so we fill in the blanks. I'm very guilty of doing that, and then you miss out in knowing, and then every time we make assumptions, then we're shutting them down, and then we wonder why the teenagers, they don't want to speak to us. They don't want to share. You ask, how was school? Good, right? That is a direct reflection of how many times the child has been shut down. Yeah?
Yes. You made me think, I've said this before, the child is a complex process of humanness that requires our attention as much as we can offer that. The child is always giving us signals, ideas about how he or she feels. We just have to pay attention. And then humility. Humility here is setting the stage for learning. And what I mean by that is that it's setting the stage for us to learn more about ourselves. and how we can be better listeners, or how we can be better at being sensitive or understanding or accepting, or being open-minded. In order to get there, for instance, the depth of our ability to understand requires that we maintain a deep aspect of humility. Humility allows us to see our fallibilities, help us to recognize where we need work, where we are flawed. So humility is very important. And a lot of my communication with the child, like it's in the space or in my office, the way I look at the child and the way I listen to the child is done through this lens of humility, or or the foundation of that humility is set for both myself and my child, or children I see, to help us, or rather to help me to be present with the child. It also suppresses my ego. That's what humility really does. Because I think, and my ego tells me that I am pretty wise. And because I am wise, I want to indoctrinate my child, because I want my child to be wise as well. So because I think that, and because I'm quote unquote aware of that, I have to be very cautious, because I will have a tendency to want my child to be like me. And I do not want that. I want my child to be my child, as she is, not who I am. And honest vulnerability, or honest vulnerability is my ability to be okay to demonstrate emotions or thoughts. It is important to be honestly vulnerable. We have to be very careful when we are trying to conceal our flaws and issues, because the child will see very clearly our issues and problems, no matter how expert we are when it comes to hiding. And let me move on this more. Personal responsibility. We take it upon ourselves to understand, or we take upon ourselves the responsibility, understand the impact that we have on the child. We are hypersensitive of that impact, the influence that we are projecting onto the child, that we have on the child. And that impact meaning we influence how the child is thinking. So a lot of the voice in the child's head, or in the back of the child's head, is our voice. So if we're projecting or displacing insecurities by criticizing the child one way or the other, that voice that we are introducing to that child will become part of that child's narrative.
And identity as they grow. We know we are a reflection of our parents, right? Like you know the key moment when they said something and you still feel insecure about it. You still feel, my mom is 85 and my grandma always said you're clumsy. And that disturbs my mother greatly. And she's always saying, I'm so clumsy, I'm so clumsy. My grandmother had died 20 years ago. And now she's saying it to herself. Now she has the personality of a clumsy person. Even if it's not accurate. Yeah?
Yeah, even your inner child has an inner parent overshadowing that child, always watching over that child, always speaking, over talking the child. So many children, their conscience, what constitute their conscience, that voice in the back of their head, is their parent. And I don't want to reside there. I don't know if you do. Maybe you have the penchant for control, and you try to preach and teach the child to death, and you want to reside or live in their heads in that fashion or form. No. It's okay to inspire the child, and there's a part of you that the child reveres, that exists within them. But as a voice of conscience and the one that is spewing the guilt or the one that's spewing the shame, the criticism, that's one legacy I certainly would not want to pass on. Open-mindedness. Conscious parents are highly open-minded. So when a child says to me, look at this ant, Dad, it's yellow with fluorescent pink polka dots, I never refute it. I'm open-minded. So the child is constantly expressing him or herself in various forms, and because the child is living in a mode of fantasy, in that mode of fantasy doesn't mean that it is an unreality. That's the state of the child's mind. It is play consciousness is what I refer to it as. So the child confabulates or fabricates stories to help the child make sense of his or her situation, even though it doesn't make sense to us. Stay open-minded. Compassionate. I'll tell you why compassionate is important. There's an aspect of compassionate referred to as empathy that allows us to potentially cultivate compassion. We have to be very careful, because what you see in whether it's in this space or with your own child, sometimes they get into conflict with other kids because they lack empathy. So I have seen children argue and fight and have these major conflicts because they don't know how to be compassionate. So we have to be very careful. So from the very get-go, you can get them very young and you use a tone of compassion, the gaze of compassion, the ear of compassion, and the mind's eye of compassion, meaning seeing the child as the child and for the child. We are already instilling a sense of this compassionate lens. We're kind of helping the child consolidate that for them. Now, the child is naturally compassionate or empathic, at least, and they show that and they demonstrate that, and research shows that even young children at the age of 1 and younger. But then when they grow up, we start to do what we do as parents, and we skew their perspective, we criticize them, we judge them, we punish them. That sense of empathy and compassion is just lost in this wave of just negativity. And then they come to school and they're yelling at other peers and they say, hey, you, I want this. And they're just lost in that dimension of madness. So be very cautious and careful. Equanimous, just peaceful. Now, the concept equanimity is, the idea of that is peace amidst the chaos. So it's not just peace, but we know that there can be troubles and challenges when it comes to parenting. And that's why we propose equanimity, because we know that there are challenges in parenting. We can still maintain some semblance of peace, serenity.
And I think one of the biggest challenge for all that is it is really scary to really truly face ourselves honestly, to really see ourselves without defenses and pretending, or I call it hologram, without the hologram we create to interact with the world, right? I am a clean, organized person, and then you have the junk drawer, right? Like it's very hard, and if we can't face ourselves honestly, it's hard to be an authentic, conscious parent, because we're so afraid to see ourselves as we really come to the table, you know. Unfortunately, I have bad news for you. Your child sees you fully. You're fooling no one. Fooling no one. Yeah. They're very in tune. They are required to be in tune for survival, right? Like, so they know. One time, my kid said, "Are you upset with me?" And I'm like, I don't think so, right? Like, I'm not aware that I'm upset with you. Because every time you're upset with me, there's this vein that pops out in your forehead. I said, I have a vein in my forehead? Like, mind blowing, right? So I responded, I must be. I don't know what it is yet. When I do, we can have a talk. Because I trusted that my child was more accurate and knew me more than I knew myself. Right? And I'm a psychologist, right? Scary, but I didn't know about the vein.
We'll reiterate that the child is always giving us signals and ideas about us. We just have to be open-minded and be willing to make the change.
And
Now,
brave.
yes, yeah, inner fortitude. So conscious parents are very intentional, and they're really intentional in the way of listening. I would tell you that when children have conflict in here, I'll go ahead and confess that my intervention is listening. It's not punishment. I do not believe in it. Not for children. And that is to say, I think they punish themselves already. And they can be hard on themselves already, and they look at themselves harshly already. So I think that's more than enough. I don't need to be the natural consequence. The child is themselves. The way that they think about themselves becomes a consequence. So the intention, when I say that the greatest form of intention in terms of intervention is to listen. So when a child does something, commits a transgression, that's my intervention. And then, of course, my response often is what is it that I can do to make sure that you can be successful in this space and that all the kids in here, including you, feel safe. Help me there. Create a plan for me to make sure that I am living up to that plan, to make sure that you and all the other kids in here feel safe. See, I'm giving the child an option here, so I am getting the child to think. I am getting the child to be proactive, but it is on the child, right? And the child will come back and say, "I have an idea. Maybe I shouldn't hit my sister, or I shouldn't yell at my brother, or I shouldn't." Right? As superficial as that may be, the significance in it is in the autonomy. The ability to recognize myself in relation and then to figure out, so this problem solving happening, and then the display of empathy itself. Maybe I should approach something different. If I'm hitting my sister, she isn't going to feel safe, right? So she might be even scared of me. And attention rather. In whether it's in the space or in general, conscious parents love to pay attention to what? Everything. Anything and everything that emerges or arises, anything that the child offers in terms of what they are projecting, I am paying attention. As a matter of fact, I engage with my own child what's called peace talks, where the child will come up with me and share all kinds of thoughts, and I am paying attention. It's purely unadulterated attention. Just focus on the child. Everything about me is attending, whether it is listening to her and my eyes peering at her, on her. The way that my face is attending, my body is attending, my fingers are attending, my own presence is attending. This is highly significant. This makes you as a parent more powerful than any punishment you can instill on the child, if in fact your attention is deeply intentional. Now, I'm not correcting the child as I'm listening to your kids. I'm not correcting. I trust that the child can correct. Now, I may guide the child to think a particular way by asking them, help me understand how that makes sense. Because I don't know how hitting your brother ensures that you and him are safe. Context of contentment, a space where both the parent and the child is in harmony. The best thing you can give your child. Safe keeps the child well. Okay. So a space where both the parent and the child is in harmony, that's referred to as providing a context of contentment, allowing the child to be in a state of happiness. Research shows that when a child is happy, boy, they learn well. They learn really well. When child is stressed, not so well, because a lot of the energy is spent on trying to survive their circumstances. So in this space, happiness is the practice. Every child, as much as we can provide a context of contentment, is very happy and content. And I bet they go home telling you that they love the school, they're really content. What they're really telling you also is that I'm learning so much
And
about.
I'm safe.
All right, abiding present. Stay with the child for as long as you can. If you can, suppress your overtalk, meaning talking at, we call it verbosity, mean talking excessively. In this case, it means talking over the child, at the child, through the child, under the child, beside the child. So talking, when you're talking to the child, if you aren't talking to the child at all, and I recommend that you don't talk at all, just stay with the child for as long as you can. The child really needs more of that safety, i.e., trust, that you can just be there and be present for him or her. I have children in here. The things they say sometimes, they probably get it from home, can be very hard and harsh, the way that they engage with their peers or with the world around them and how they perceive other people around them. I do not try to correct them, but I do. You know how I correct them? Can someone tell me? I'm a conscious parent. How do I teach them integrity, honesty, compassion, stability?
You live it.
Model.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you didn't hear that, the answer is modeling. That's exactly what I do. That is exactly what I do. Yes. Modeling. It is the most important parenting practice known to men and womankind. So this is the best way to parent. It has to start and end with that. Okay, not just start with that. It has to start and end with that. And I refer to criticism or judgment as the bane of conscious parenting. This whole idea that we are parenting kids or controlling kids under the guise of parenting is a danger to their well-being. We'll do one more. Okay. The pause. Here, what that means is when you're listening to the child, pause. Pause for it. The it is the expression of the child, him or herself. They are given an opportunity to freely be free to be themselves. And if you are really good at pausing, i.e., listening, and you gaze them into their eyes, and what you will be surprised is that within them there is this universe that is filled with wonderfulness that can bring about for us joy. That's the sympathetic joy. Yes. And riding the wave of their conscious mind. So I imagine myself as a leaf riding ever so gently and calmly on the stream of their consciousness. Whatever they are saying, whatever they're spewing out, it matters not to me. I am just riding that wave on the stream of their consciousness. That's what I do. Okay? We'll stop here. There are 80 slides here. We probably went through about 15, but that's okay. Let's process.
I was curious of the things you heard today. What stands out the most? What was something that was salient or hit home or stayed with you? Is there anything that really hit and connected?
Or none of it.
I think for me, a lot of it is to be quiet
Mm-hmm.
and listen and let it take time to come out instead of feeling the need to interject or to teach, but
Yes.
to just be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how it comes, and not to have all the answers.
Yeah, because we want to be important, we want to be valued, right? We want to pass on. But it's hard. It gets in the way of us getting to know our little ones. Yeah. How about for the rest of you?
I think one thing that really stood out was creating a space of contentment and asking myself, what does contentment look like? Like, what does that space look like? What might it look like for my child? So often I think we're so gung-ho to find the conclusion or find the ending or to reach a certain spot that we miss contentment because we're always thinking about the next thing. And so that's one thing that really kind of stood out for me was like, what does a space of contentment look like? What does real safety look like? Because safety isn't a hurry to get somewhere. Safety isn't thinking about the future, anxiety or stress or fear. Safety is contentment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you're curious. I can hear the curiosity and trying to figure that out. Awesome. Anyone else want to share?
I was driving to work this morning speaking to my best friend and said, don't worry, I'm not putting the cart before the horse. And then I just started laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, I just dadded myself. Like, that was what my dad would say. And so it makes me think, what voice, how do I live in my children right now? My kids are older. They're 18, almost 16 and 12. So what's my voice in their head now? And, how can I just support it being more gentle and kind? And that's interesting.
But that's incredible awareness, the insight in that moment, recognizing that for your own experience. But also then, oh my gosh, I done that to my child somehow because we done it.
Right.
I call them the dents. We have dented them so much they're almost not recognizable sometimes. The dents, yeah.
Based off of that point, it makes me think, I'm going to try to frame this the right way. There's two examples. Someone close, there was a summer league softball thing, and they had said they got like a base hit, and their dad was there from out of town, and they made a comment after they made it home that, like, I was up there and then I heard Dad tell me, I don't remember what it was, like, step up, or I don't know what it was, but
Pull yourself by your bootstraps.
yeah, something like that, right? And how for them, it like their narrative was that somehow inspired them. So that's one piece where the voice inside was there, right? And then the other situation I was thinking about was a classmate from back in high school, really struggled in high school, got arrested senior year, had to go to summer school to graduate, all those things. And now as a father, he'll say things like, man, I should have just listened to my parents or my coaches who were telling me to get my head on straight and all those things. So something happened from the age of 18 till, I don't know, when he adopted this attitude towards life. But it seemed like as a kid, he was rebelling against all of the adults around him. And then something happened that made him become that adult. Yeah. So I'm not so sure. They would say, oh, I love this voice inside my head. I should have listened to it earlier. How would you respond to that?
I call that brainwashing, right? So we get so used to being intruded upon that we don't build the resilience and the critical thinking necessary to live well. So then we end up in jail and we do all those things. Then it goes, oh, they were right, instead of seeing how they were as a source of the problem.
Mm-hmm. And I must say, the teammate in the softball, I couldn't help but feel like it was a matter of loyalty and still wanting that love. Because I knew the
Approval.
person pretty closely.
Yeah.
It was that approval. And so they were still at age 45 doing the same thing as they were at age 10. You know?
I have adults in their 70s and 80s still wanting to be loved. And, you know, like the internalization of that love didn't occur because parenting was so controlling on the guise of this is the best for my child, right? Like, so we all walking around in a deficit. And then sometimes then we have children, we want to make up the deficit through the child, which is also troublesome. Because then we're trying to create something that may not necessarily be what they need, right? We miss the opportunity to get to know them as they are. But that's always at play. All those things are always at play. And we still gotta try to do better, right? Yeah.
I've said before, it's the only job it's the job that I've wanted to mess up the least. And it's painful knowing every time I have, you know, because I think we always want to do a good job, and there's nothing that I wanted to do a better job at as being a mom. So like seeing the times that I've made mistakes, it's devastating, right? Like, yeah, it's tricky.
So given all the struggles and the fears and the things, the forces at play, how do you think, again, we're not talking about perfection, but recognizing where you at as a parent now, how do you want to make that one step towards being more conscious? What is a way that you really can see applicability? Like, actually, okay, I'm going to commit to really doing this one thing, right? Because it can be overwhelming, all the things. But we can start somewhere. So how do we move from being this parent, you know, just a shift? Is there a way to do that? That is realistic for you?
I think it's kind of like a snowball, really. Like it's got to start small and you know, something that you want to focus on. And then when I know in the moments that I'm really practicing on something and being conscious about something, when I see that come to fruition without my involvement and watch my child, you know, get to where I wanted them to be without my influence, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't
It
need
works.
to. It works, yeah, exactly. Like I didn't need to do that, and then that just kind of snowballs into other aspects of okay, what can I try next? You know, I still want to be conscious on that and still want to apply that, but I want to start to integrate other things, and so I think that's a huge factor for me is just being present enough to see it come to fruition.
So being present is the step?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think with that, like little tricks, gimmicks you can do for yourself. I've been lucky to go to the conscious workshops for a while now, so I've been able to try things. Something like, this could be the last time. So with my daughter, whether it's when I'm feeling a little bit annoyed, you know, that it used to be a bath. Well, I don't give her baths anymore, right? So at some point these things end, and then you wish you could go back and just like help her walk, you know, even though your back hurts. And, you know. So bedtime now, right? Like I'm comfortable, I'm in my thing, you know, I can let it go another 10 minutes, or like as I go to help and she's not, you know, ready to go with it, I could be irritated, or I could, this could be the last time, you know, so those little tricks I think can help.
Yeah, and we never know when that phase is going to be over, but I think also for me, my struggle is it's much better now, but in the beginning it was harder. They're gonna be stuck this way. Like, if I don't intervene, they're gonna stay stuck this way, and it's terrible, right? And really, a lot of self-talk is a strategy that helps. Like, no, that's what's showing up in your mind. Your child is not gonna believe the ants have yellow polka dots forever. You don't need to correct. I still correct today. I catch myself still doing that. But every time they will figure it out. They will grow no matter what my fears are. So being able to keep contained my fears is really, really helpful. But it's still a practice today, right? Like, it just changes from each developmental stage what that's going to look like. So is there anything else that is the next that is going to shift from right here to right here? If you think about connecting deeply and trusting the child to evolve despite our teaching, our brilliance, right?
I gotta reset the camera, but Vivi, what you were saying, like, and I think Khanh, you even said it before, having a real faith in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think Khanh, you said faith in humanity. If you're a religious person, there might be a faith of something else there, right? But because there are all those moments where you're like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
But then if you give it time, you start to see it unfold. You start to see the mistakes can be really awesome growing moments, especially as the parent, if you handle it the right way.
Yeah, like Cody's saying, like, they
patient.
do figure it out, And it's beautiful to say it does build faith. We gotta have faith to begin with, but when we watch the process, it builds more faith. Is there something that we discussed that was really uncomfortable to hear? Was there something that created some pain or fear for you that we went over today? Any sore spots? No?
It makes sense for the most part, right? The idea of conscious parenting, it's a different approach. But I would figure a lot of what I said just simply makes sense intuitively. And that requires it doesn't require excess thinking about it. Like, I understand that just staying present to the child really matters to the child.
I could share one that used to get me, that, like, when you say, I won't lie to me, like the kid lying part, right?
Yeah.
Like, my mind was in that behavioral place, right? It's probably being an educator trained in that field, and like, no, you want them to act in a way that then gets them to this place, right? Without understanding the whole process of what that looks like. And actually, this is another thing too, is conscious parenting is way more active than I originally realized. Like, it's more active than any other parenting style. In the sense that what's okay is the child is communicating. Here we are right now in the present moment. And I influence them with how I am with them, right? So if they trust me, right, if I'm honest, you guys already talked about it, that's what gets the shift over time, right? It's not the, you lied to me again, now we gotta take your video games, and
Yeah, and it's our inclination to suppress behavior because it is easier. It doesn't get us where we want, but it is easier. A long time ago, Khanh said, he said it either in a discussion with me or he said it to me, I can't remember. He said, you can't parent from the couch, right? I love I said this before, the Walmart example. You can't yell at a Walmart! Stop yelling! I'm like, okay, that's parenting from the couch, right? Yeah. I'm Brazilian, we speak in different rooms. Like, my child can be in the bathroom, like, hey, do you want noodles? But then when my child speaks from the bedroom, like, what? Come out here. right? Such a hypocrite, right? Like, so that I call all those behaviors because we are so tired or we're exhausted. We don't have any more space. We really parent from the cheap seats, right? We're in the couch. We don't want to do one more ounce of movement. So when you say conscious parent is extremely active, because people say, "Oh, you hands off. You're not parenting." I said, "No, you're actually parenting way more." Because it's not about you. You're stepping outside yourself, right? So, yeah, I like parenting from the couch sometimes, even though I catch it. Now that Khanh highlighted that, I cannot see it, right? It's like, I have to get out of the
Just
couch.
get you some walkie-talkies.
Yeah. Intercom.
We text
Yeah, right. Forget the phone.
from the
Same
couch.
house.
Seriously.
Yep, you're in this house,
Oh,
and you're
100%.
texting.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I think another one, like, one thing that to practice is whatever the situation is, whether it's a good experience or bad or behavior, whatever it is, like, it's a direct reflection of the environment that they've been in. And the environment that they've been in, you put them in.
Yeah.
And so they're a direct reflection of you. So if it's like, okay, I don't like that behavior, right? I need to look this. I'm looking at a mirror. How do I change that? How do I need to respond to this so that there's a behavior that I would like better in the future?
Yeah.
You know, and so like really looking at whatever the situation is as you're looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
And,
It's hard though, because that's one of the reasons we get so reactive is when we see the behavior in a child, unconsciously we know it's our fault. And we want to squash it. I don't want anybody to see my child doing the curse word because I used it at home. And now they're exposing me to other people, right? It's scary. So.
I think for me, it's slowing myself down. And I've been leaning into that for a while and just kind of doubling down on it. And I had a challenging experience with one of my kids last weekend, and at one point I got some time by myself, and all I was doing was identifying what I was feeling to myself. I'm feeling anger right now. Okay. I'm feeling embarrassment. Okay. Like, and just taking that time, not really doing anything about it, but just identifying what I was feeling for myself, you know, and then I was able to enter the space with my child again in a different way because I was just more aware of what I was holding.
Beautiful.
And, yeah.
Beautiful. And this, you know, even though it's scary, this work is life enhancing. Not only for the child, but for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're little reflections of us. They're always calling us out in one way or another. It's a great opportunity. You know?
She looked at me at one point, can you hear yourself right now? And I was like, okay, I think I can. I think so, but maybe I need to take a minute. I thought I was good, but maybe I need to take a second.
But that's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
What kind of beautiful modeling that is.
Yeah.
Self-reflection.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
And honesty, right?
Yeah.
and to react to criticism in a moment like that, right?
Yeah.
Without a reaction.
Right.
Like, oh, actually, like, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Let me self-reflect.
Hang on. Give me a second.
Instead of, do you want me to?
Yeah.
Right.
Tone?
Yeah.
Let me make sure I'm
not
actually in
yet.
my body. I thought it was in my body. Maybe I'm not. Give me a second.
Is there any particular questions or anything percolating there that we can process and discuss? Anything you're curious about?
I would just love, personally, if at some point, because I know we're out of time, but I would love to talk about conscious repair. Because I do have teenagers, and I do have, you know, I'm in brand new territory. I get phone calls, you guys, that, yeah. Love that they call me. Love that they call me. But I'm in brand new territory. So, like, just as we're moving into those different worlds, what does conscious repair look like? What is it, you know, when you're past the point of little guys and they're bringing things to you, and you're, just something to think about. I would love that.
And that is always ongoing, even when they're little.
Yeah.
And but it's ongoing into adult children. Yeah. How are we? How are we on time? Are we?
It's it's up to you guys in the group here. We've got an hour and a half now.
Any thoughts? I know it's late.
Yeah, it might be a good point.
Pausing. Yeah.
Maybe for another time. I'll go
Yeah.
back and,
I love the idea because that is something I constantly working on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you very much for attending. And
Thank you.
And one more came to mind for next time too is when, because I know there is a time, when do you intervene with a child more so than you normally would, right? You actually take control of the situation because you see where they're going.
The precipice is right
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Yeah. And they need
Okay.
help. And they're not asking for it, but you can see it.
yes, and what I like to do, like with kids in here, when I see that they're having a difficult time, I will approach them. But it's kind imposition, so it's, hey, is there anything I can do to help you here? Or I'll be over there if we need to discuss something. Yeah, to let them know that I see what I am seeing, but then to acknowledge them by presenting that is validating them too. And they may say, no, I got this one. You help them understand that you see that they are struggling or suffering. And then I had a kid who came to me and said, hey, can you meet me in the office, please? I'm in conflict with this other person, and that other person is already in the office. We need to resolve this. So how they got there is how I presented myself before all of that even happened, letting them know that I'm listening very carefully. And from time to time, in these very kids, I would turn over to them and say, hey, if there's anything that you need, I'm here. And that's just sending that message allowed these two particular kids call me and have me go up into the office to help them resolve the issue. But these kids know that they're not being judged, and they're certainly not going to get punished. And kids don't need punishment. They need self-regulated parents. And the kids that do need punishment would benefit from self-regulated parents. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
So October 16th, 2 weeks.